Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Tuesday, October 25th open session of the North Andover Select Board. I'd like to have you stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to call this meeting to order and move on to our public comment. Is there anybody here for public comment? Okay. Seeing no public comment, we will move on to our first governmental report tonight, which is an update of the multifamily zoning requirements for the MBTA communities. And I think we're handing that over to Andrew Shapiro. Thank you.
First, let me get all set up here.
Madam Chair, while he's connecting, is there any interest in taking new business item A, just so the residents that we have here could?
Definitely, yes. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and move on, skip ahead to new business item A. The request of Sasha Weinrich on behalf of the North Andover CPAC to raise the Special Education Parent Advisory Council flag at the Common for the month of November and to proclaim the third Friday of every November CPAC Awareness Day. Would you like to speak to no. Just give us a quick, since you guys are here, you can give us a really quick, yeah.
Love to hear about you.
Yeah.
So my name is Courtney. I'm the head chair of the North Andover Special Education Parent Advisory Council. And
So my name is Sasha Weinrich. I'm the vice chair of the North Andover CPAC. We can talk a little bit about CPAC if that would be helpful. We're a state-mandated, parent-led nonprofit organization that is statutorily appointed by the school committee. So every city or town in Massachusetts has a CPAC. We do a lot of, like for example, tonight we have a basic rights presentation available to all parents to educate them on how their children can receive a free and appropriate public education. We host disability-related workshops like that. We share feedback on education and safety of students with disabilities within the district, among other things, and Courtney can talk a bit about that as well if you'd like.
yep, so we also do, when school committee members are trying to get voted in, we do a candidate meeting, and a lot of families attend because it's very important for them to know about what, for special needs families.
So essentially, we're hoping to continue to bring awareness to our mission and the nearly 20% of students in Massachusetts schools that receive special education services. And we are kindly requesting that the Select Board support and proclaim the third Friday of every November and at North Andover CPAC Awareness Day, which is in line with Governor Baker's proclamation to have CPAC awareness be for the entire month of November for the Commonwealth, as well as asking to raise the CPAC flag at the Common for the month of November.
Perfect.
So the reason why, this is very special to me because we would be the first town in Massachusetts, if this goes, to even have a CPAC Awareness Day. So this is actually really important in making history as well.
Thank you. Okay, well, we're pleased to have you with us tonight, and certainly would like to go ahead. Does anybody have questions for our CPAC people? Or?
Thank you for all your hard work. I mean, there's obviously a lot of children in our district that benefit from your tireless efforts and volunteer time, and the programming that you put out for parents to educate them. It's not an easy road to navigate, and it touches many families, so we really appreciate what you do, and this will be wonderful to be the first one in the Commonwealth to follow Governor Baker.
Thank you.
Thank
Right.
you.
Thank you. Gladly, I will take a motion.
Madam Chair, I will make a motion to the Select Board approve the request of Sasha Weinrich to be, on behalf of the North Andover CPAC, to raise the Special Education Parent Advisory Council flag at the Common for the month of November, except from the 10th to the 13th, and to proclaim the third Friday of every November CPAC Awareness Day.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great, thank you. I actually have a proclamation for our CPAC chairs, so I'm gonna go on over to Nick. Can read it. Whereas 2019 marks the year in which Governor Baker proclaimed CPAC Awareness Month to be every November in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and whereas this November marks the 36th anniversary of the Massachusetts law requiring the establishment of a special education parent advisory council by the school committee of each city, town, or school district, whereas CPACs are charged with advising the school committee on matters that pertain to the education and safety of students with disabilities, are parent-led, and meet regularly to provide resources to families of students with disabilities, and whereas CPAC shall promote communication and programs within the community to encourage understanding, acceptance, and inclusion for the approximately 20% of Massachusetts student population with special needs, and to fight to ensure all students receive their right to a free and appropriate public education. Whereas the North Andover CPAC enthusiastically encourages the support of and awareness surrounding the CPAC mission by the community of North Andover. Now, therefore, we, the North Andover Select Board, do hereby proclaim the third Friday of every month to be North Andover CPAC Awareness Day, and urge all citizens of North Andover to take cognizance of this event and participate fittingly in its observance. Signed by me and the Select Board. So congratulations.
Thank you.
So just a question, will there be any kind of a ceremony or anything for the flag raising, or is it just gonna go up, which is fine? I just
Yeah,
wondered.
So what are we?
This year it's just going up.
Yeah, it's just going up, but we'll probably have some 5 people just be there when it happens.
I can't wait to see it.
Thank you so much.
We are
Appreciate it.
to plug though, because we are broadcasting to the community. We are having an event on High Street on November 15th as part of our CPAC Awareness Week, and we have agreement from all of the restaurants on High Street to participate and donating a percentage of their profits to CPAC, and we're working with RCG to be able to use the courtyard in the West Mill in order to provide raffles, and also North Andover gear and CPAC gear from Rachel Bedard from B Design. So we look forward to all of you joining us. Thank you.
I have to tell you, the flag, which we saw, is really beautiful.
Thank you.
Is that the one that? Is
That's our CPAC logo, for
Yes,
North End. Yep.
It's really beautiful.
Thank you. And then we have the school administration on board again for the second year to do Wear Yellow for CPAC awareness, and they're going to be doing inclusion in schools. So it's very exciting. Very happy.
Well, thank you guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay. We'll head back to Andrew for item A of our governmental reports.
Okay, thanks for having me back. Again, for the record, Andrew Shapiro, Director of Community and Economic Development, here to discuss basically an update to a subject we discussed earlier this year in regards to multifamily zoning, a requirement from the Commonwealth through Section 3A of the Zoning Act, and the issuance of final guidance from the state. So I'll get right into it because this is a, this can be a little bit of a dense subject, so my apologies in advance. So just a bit of a refresher on where we were with respect to this rule change. So there was legislation that was passed by and signed by the governor in 2020 and 2021. And amendments to that legislation allowed for basically a change in the quantum of votes for certain types of new bylaws and ordinances related to production of housing, changing the votes required from a simple, a 2/3 majority to a simple majority. And another section of that bill added Section 3A, which is the subject of this presentation, addressing a requirement for so-called MBTA communities, and we, North Andover, are considered an MBTA community, to have at least one as-of-right multifamily zoning district of what is considered to be a reasonable size, with a minimum density of 15 units per acre. And I'll get a little more detail on that for the folks at home and to refresh you all's memory as we go through this. But just a little bit of a timeline. So DHCD issued an initial set of guidance on Section 3A back in January of 2021. And then almost a year later, in December of 2021, DHCD issued new draft guidance that kind of updated their initial draft guidance. And they also embarked kind of on a engagement process with the public, and they received over 400 comments, 90 of which were from municipalities, including us, on what the initial guidance said. And then I came before you all in April of 2022. We had a discussion about these new rules. So I held a briefing with the select board. And then in August of 2022, they issued, DHCD, the Department of Housing and Community Development, for those following at home, they issued final guidance. So basically, here's what the rules are. We're clarifying all the questions. We're taking into consideration all of the comments and things that came in from the public. And so where did we, North Andover, stand after draft guidance was issued earlier this year? Well, we were considered a rail community, and that required us to create that one district with a unit capacity of 1,787 minimum by right units, which would have equaled 15% of our housing stock from the U.S. Census count of 11,914 total housing units. So that is not to say that we are required to build 1,787 units. We just needed to basically demonstrate that we could zone for that number of by right units, and that at least half of the district needed to be located within half a mile of the Lawrence MBTA station, which at the time what we tried to convey to the state was that really wasn't feasible. If you take a look at a map, a half-mile distance from the Lawrence MBTA station only encompasses a really small chunk of land in North Andover. Not a lot of it is even really developable for this type of purpose. And compliance would have just not been straightforward whatsoever. So we conveyed that to DHCD, and they took comments like that from us and from other communities into consideration when they were drafting final guidance. So now we have that final guidance, and I'm here to discuss that with you. And we are no longer considered a rail community. We're now considered an adjacent community. And they define an adjacent community as an MBTA community that has within its boundaries less than 100 acres of developable station area, and two, it is not an adjacent small town. So we're not considered a small town, and we have less than 100 acres available within the station area, aka within a half a mile of a MBTA station.
I think also it's helpful to point out that this happened because of a lot of lobbying from the town staff, one, but two, Andover still is MBTA community. They're still considered a rail community. They did not get the adjacent community designation.
They have a stop.
They do, they have more than one.
They have a stop, yes.
So it makes sense.
Does make sense. It did make sense to us that we were considered to be a rail community.
May I ask, so that obviously the land that is in that general area is already developed. Are they looking for raw land for new?
No, I mean,
Just rezoned?
So yeah, they basically want to see land rezoned to accommodate the standards of Section 3A. The only sort of qualifier to that is you can't zone land that, for instance, is undevelopable, like it's wetland or it's, let's say, a Superfund site or something like that, something that would make it infeasible to be redeveloped. But you could feasibly, in theory, rezone an area, let's say, that's currently has like commercial buildings or something like that on it, and it could accommodate for a future reuse as multifamily housing. So to get a little more into that definition of, as of right compliance. So, and I apologize because I know this is a bit dense, but I wanted to be very intentional and clear about what the language said and what the guidance says. So I wanted to make sure there was little sort of ad-libbing on my part. To comply with Section 3A, a multifamily zoning district must allow multifamily housing as of right. So basically what that means is we need to be able to accommodate for it in our zoning through kind of a traditional site plan review process. Right now, most of the multifamily housing in our zoning bylaw is accommodated for through a special permit process, or we call it site plan through special permit, which is a little bit unusual, which means that there's just enough, I'd say, discretion in there that DHCD probably would not consider that to be technically as of right. So right now, we need to refocus and see where can we zone for the type of use that we're looking for, which is what the state is asking us to look at, which is multifamily as a by right use through a site plan review process. And as it says here, site plan review can regulate matters such as vehicular access, circulation on site, architectural design of a building, and screening of adjacent properties, but it can't unreasonably delay a project nor impose conditions to make it infeasible or impractical to proceed with the project. So in other words, there's a level of discretion already built into site plan review, and that's acceptable to DHCD, but it just can't be so unreasonable so as to stop development from happening altogether or to make it infeasible to develop multifamily housing. This slide speaks to the issue of affordability. And then let me first say that the initial guidance was saying to us that a new compliant multifamily district could not require that more than 10% of new units be affordable. And the justification from them at the time, I think, was the idea that if they allowed for more than, or if it required more than 10% affordable, that it would be infeasible or economically infeasible for developers to create that new multifamily housing. Now, as you all know, just this past annual town meeting, we passed a new inclusionary zoning bylaw that requires that multifamily provide for at least 15% new affordable housing units within a multifamily development. And so we would have been out of compliance if we wanted to apply that 15% threshold. But what DHCD did was it sounds like they kind of reconsidered that action, and they're saying that we can now create we can go above the 10%, but not go above 20% for that affordable threshold. But we do have to demonstrate economic feasibility for being able to create those units. So in other words, we have to show that with that, in our case, if we're going to use the 15% threshold, that if we're going to have a 15% requirement in our multifamily district, that it's still economically feasible for those multifamily housing units, all the units, both affordable and by right market rate, to be produced.
So I don't understand why it would be out of compliance. It seems like we would be in compliance.
Yeah, so let me just be clear. By what's being described on this slide, we are in compliance.
Okay.
Because DHCD, when they initially issued the draft guidance, they had a note in there basically saying you can't go above 10%, but we're at 15%. But now they're saying actually you can go above 10, but you can't go above 20, and you have to demonstrate that it's feasible.
So we're right in the zone.
So we're in the zone at this
So
point.
who determines if it's feasible?
That's a really good question. So that's going to be
Thank you.
something I will bring up later in the discussion, but I will answer it now as well, just to say I think we need to have a discussion with, and we need to seek out some technical guidance on that issue. And there's some avenues to get that technical guidance, and I can describe it a little later. But basically, I don't, as of right now, know how we demonstrate that.
That would be so there's no guidelines in place that it would come from the developers, or would it come from the town? Would it come from an unbiased third party, or? That's
an excellent question. I just don't know at this point. I mean, one thing in my mind is, and this is a project that's they haven't come, I want to be very clear, I don't think they've submitted a permit application as of yet, but there's been discussion about a redevelopment of a property on Main Street, the former Santander Bank lot, and they're proposing multifamily housing there, and they're proposing to comply with the new inclusionary zoning bylaw. So I would imagine if that project could get permitted with 15% affordable units being provided, that would be a demonstration of feasibility. Because if they couldn't do it, why would they apply for the project, and why would they move forward on that project? But I don't know if that standard is going to be good enough for DHCD. We're going to have to find out.
Okay. Have any other communities started this yet, or no? It's too early?
I think most communities are in our general stage of thinking on this. I think some are behind us. I think some are maybe a little ahead of us, because there are a lot of communities where they already know they have compliant districts. Like they may have districts that already allow for by right multifamily housing development, and they may not have any issues on requiring more affordable housing units. So they might be looking at this and saying, we're kind of all set to go. All we need to do is submit to DHCD that we want to make these zoning districts that already comply with the language, we want to designate these as our required multifamily districts. We're in a situation where and I'll describe it in a minute, where we probably have at least one area that's already compliant, but then we need to do a little more work. We probably need to go through the annual town meeting process or a special town meeting process to approve additional zoning that would accommodate these requirements. So we have a little more work ahead of ourselves, but the intent here is to kind of keep us along that path.
Thank you.
So, minimum land area. All this is really saying is that as an adjacent community, which I mentioned that is what we are designated as, the minimum land area of a multifamily zoning district needs to be 50 acres. So that's all you really need to know, is that we need to find 50 acres in town that can accommodate for a 15 unit per acre density of by right multifamily housing. And in addition to that, at least half of the multifamily zoning district has to comprise contiguous lots of land. So we can't like split it up a bunch of different ways. We can, but we have to make sure that at least half is contiguous and that no portion is less than 5 contiguous acres. So those are the two land area requirements through this guidance. And now the unit capacity. So as I mentioned before, under the previous guidance, we were being required to provide a zoning area that could accommodate 1,787 new multifamily units. Now the requirement is that we provide an area for 1,191 units. So just want to make sure I got my math right here. That's a difference of 596 units and a reduction of about 33% in our unit requirement. So again, I want to stress to folks at home and to everybody here that we're being asked to approve zoning to accommodate for the production of those units, but not to necessarily have those units produced. So we need to be able to provide the avenue for the production of the units, but they don't have to be produced. So there could be areas that are zoned that may never change over from what they are today when we come to the end of this process. But if for some reason they were to be redeveloped in any way, shape, or form, they could go toward this idea of redeveloping for this number of units at this density.
You can tell me to wait too.
No, it's fine.
Is there a distance that I know before it was half mile from
Oh,
the
yeah.
station. Does that change now?
I want to say I have a slide that addresses this, but
Okay.
I'll just tell you right now that the short answer is no. So they recognize that adjacent communities can't necessarily comply with that distance requirement. We certainly can't. We could have only applied it based on a very small land area. So we have the flexibility to kind of do it practically anywhere. There's a little bit of a caveat there where we have to kind of demonstrate that we're zoning it in an area that's feasible for new development. In other words, kind of that it's it's served by utilities, that it's served by transit access and pedestrian areas and things like that it can accommodate new development. Not that we're like shoving it aside in some back of some industrial park that can't accommodate this type of development. That's the idea there. So. Minimum gross density. So this slide's really just to say that gross density is defined as units per acre. So when we're talking about density, we're saying units per acre, and we need to be able to zone to a density of 15 units per acre within the district, and that we can't have, for instance, and this is what the second bullet is saying. We can't have, for instance, that parking requirements would be so stringent so as to not make it feasible to achieve the density requirement. So you can't kind of take backdoor ways in zoning to make it infeasible to build the units that you're saying you can accommodate for through, hyper stringent parking requirements, for instance, as an example, or dimensional requirements.
A little bit off this
Yeah.
subject, but I'm thinking of it now. So would these units count towards our affordable numbers?
So
I saw you.
So you're shaking your head, but I think we wouldn't
Well, only
any
if they came in as a 40B. So this was a big topic.
if so not all of the units would count, but the affordable units that are created would.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
But when we
Oh, if
went
it was a
on-
rental, you mean they wouldn't count them all?
When we discussed this at the, sorry, we have much talk about this.
Yeah.
We discussed this at our last meeting with the Merrimack Valley Planning Committee. Because one of the things we were saying was, wouldn't it have made a lot more sense for them to draft this in such a way that a certain percentage, whether it was 10% or whatever, had to be affordable. But unfortunately, the legislation doesn't say that. So unless someone was coming in and building under the zoning as a 40B, it wouldn't be deemed affordable housing.
So only if it's a 40B do the market rate units count towards your affordable.
Yes.
So if a unit goes up and we meet our bylaw,
Our 15%.
our 15%, and it's 5 units, those 5 units go towards our affordable units, but the 20 do not.
No, I mean,
Right,
the individual
unless it's a
units can be
40B.
added.
But I want to be clear about a couple things. One, that is the case today,
Yes.
unless a 40B is proposed.
Yeah.
So if under our new inclusionary zoning bylaw, the only units that get counted towards our subsidized housing inventory are those that are actually deeded affordable. And I don't quote me on this. I'd have to take a closer look, but I want to say, and Melissa, maybe you know, I don't know if our 40R might accommodate counting all units.
Our 40R certainly would.
Okay, so our 40R, and we'll get into that into a minute because I
So-
think 40R is going to be a piece of this puzzle.
Just to clarify for me, then I'm confused.
Yeah.
With 40B,
Yeah.
only the affordable units count towards our affordable stock.
No.
All the units do.
All the units do.
If they're rental units,
If they're rental,
Oh, if
they
they're
all
rental.
count.
Oh, if
They
they're
all
rental,
count,
yeah,
yes.
but not if they're market rate, not the market, if they're for sale.
if they're for sale, only I believe the affordable units count
Yeah.
towards
Yeah.
the subsidized housing
Okay.
inventory.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay,
Yeah.
that's.
It's complex. There's so many
No,
layers
that's
to
my,
this.
that was my understanding. I missed the rental piece of it. I
Yeah.
thought you were saying that the for sale ones were.
Not a problem, not a problem. So this just covers the gross density issue. And then in terms of achieving district-wide gross density by sub-districts, this is just saying that you can have areas of a district that are under the 15 unit per acre threshold, but other areas need to balance that out and get it above the 15 unit per acre threshold. So in total, in aggregate, you need to be able to demonstrate that your entire zoning district that complies with this is at least 15 units per acre, multifamily by right. That's all this is
So
saying.
like an average.
Basically like an average,
So
yes.
if you have like 30 over here and 10 over here.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Because I think what this is accounting for is just saying, I think DHCD recognizes that there's certain neighborhoods that are just, it's infeasible to build at that level of density. So you could say, all right, well, this neighborhood can accommodate this zoning, but at a lower density. And then this area that might be in a separate neighborhood that's also zoned as our multifamily housing district, it can accommodate a higher density. And it's going to have to create more housing units to balance out the less number of housing units we're going to build over in this neighborhood. So, suitability for families with children. So this is language that's used in the guidance that just basically speaks to building out housing as of right that a family, that doesn't have age restrictions. It shall be suitable for families with children. So they'll deem it, DHCD will deem a multifamily zoning district to comply with these requirements as long as zoning does not require multifamily uses to include units with age restrictions and does not limit or restrict the size of the units, cap the number of bedrooms, the size of bedrooms, or the number of occupants, or impose a minimum age of occupants. So the idea here is they want to prevent a development that, let's say, is only studio apartments and one bedrooms. That would be obviously not deemed reasonable for most families to be able to move into. They don't want to create a situation where people are, or zoning districts are being developed that couldn't just, not account for the idea that a family can move into at least a portion of the units being developed. So that's what this is accounting for.
Or 50 plus, obviously, right?
Yes, exactly. And if you're sometimes you're sort of excluding the idea of families if you're saying, well, only this age of people are going to be able to live here. Location, I think this gets to your earlier question, Selectwoman. The MBTA community that has less than 100 acres of developable station area within its boundaries may locate the multifamily zoning district anywhere in its boundaries. So that's us. We have less than 100 acres of developable station area. And so what the second paragraph is basically saying is that we're encouraged to consider locating the multifamily district in an area with reasonable access to a transit station based on existing street patterns, pedestrian connections, bicycle lanes, or in an area that qualifies as a quote-unquote eligible location as defined in Chapter 40A. So near downtown, a village center, regional transit authority, bus stop or line, or in a location with existing underutilized facilities that can be redeveloped into new multifamily housing. So that's going to be an area where we're going to have to, depending on where we end up designating our MBTA zoning compliant district, we might have to make a case that yes, this is in fact a reasonable location, and DHCD is going to have to agree. So those are some of the compliance guidelines. In terms of compliance timeline, when we have to comply, as I noted here, we're an adjacent community and we're required to submit an action plan by the end of January of 2023. So in a couple months now, it's coming up on us. And I just want to go ahead and allay any major concerns. The word action plan is a little bit of a misnomer in my opinion. It's not so much of an action plan, it's a little more of a questionnaire, kind of asking where we are in the process of thinking about this. Do we have any MBTA zoning compliant existing districts that can comply under this? What are we doing to kind of think about it? And I think it asks some basic probing questions to understand where we are in the process, but I wouldn't consider it to be an action plan as in a lot of narrative and a lot of public input. And then ultimately we just have to submit to DHCD by the end of December, to the end of the year 2024, to demonstrate that we believe that we're in compliance, and then they're going to have to agree with that in order for us to be in full compliance.
So the difficult part with this timeline is that we only get one town meeting, right, bite at the apple. So that was something that we had talked about a lot at that meeting the other day. This is going to be much easier for a city to come into compliance than it's going to be for a town, or a town that maybe has a fall town meeting. But knowing that, we're going to have to be aware that we may have to make some changes.
I don't have to go into too much detail here. This is just basically saying we need to submit an action plan. I mentioned before that's required by the end of January 2023. We have to include information about current zoning, past planning for multifamily housing, potential locations, and we have to kind of lay out a timeline for when we think we're going to be compliant. They have to approve that plan. They could ask us for more information and a modification, but they'll, assuming DHCD is okay with our action plan, they'll issue us a determination of interim compliance.
So is that underway already? I mean, like you said, it's only a few months away,
So-
January 2023.
I know.
Yeah, I mean, it's underway.
I mean, have you guys started working
They
on it?
just released it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They released it in August. I mean, we've had a couple months, but
We've been meeting on it and talking about what we'll use. It's not overly complicated
yeah.
at all, actually. It's just kind of, what is your plan to get there?
Yeah.
So it's something that we've been reviewing. It'll be.
Yeah, I'm just thinking the municipal schedule,
Yeah.
you're gonna have to bring it to us to review it, and then we're gonna have to come back
And
and
there's
vote on it.
holidays
and
all
then-
in there,
yeah.
which
Yeah. Yeah.
kind of mess up our scheduling. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, it's
It'll be-
notorious every year that
Yeah.
we've got to work around that. Wow. I
So
thought
they-
it was a typo.
No, they gave a very tight timeline to do this, so.
And what's
But-
the penalty? I mean, you're probably gonna cover it for
I
non-compliance.
will, but
once
in basically, it's we're not going to be eligible to receive grant funding from the state.
They said
It's
they
either
may-
that or stocks.
So they said they may go further than, they haven't said, but in the meeting that I was in, they said that there's been indications that they may look at other types of aid as well.
I meant the stocks where they throw things at you,
Oh.
not stocks. No one said anything. I thought, oh, they didn't get what I was saying.
So then we got to implement the action plan, obviously, and do what we say we're going to do in that action plan, which is move along the process of developing or coming to an agreement as a community what that MBTA compliant zoning is going to be. And this is the piece that's sort of in flux right now. There's an organization called the Massachusetts Housing Partnership that has been very involved in this whole process, and they've been working very closely with the Department of Housing and Community Development, the state, on this issue. And they issued basically a technical assistance opportunity that we applied for. And my hope is that they take us up or come to the table and help us with this process. And at that time, I think we'll be able to. Now, just to be clear, regardless of whether or not they work with us, we'll be fine and we'll get it done. But I think it would be helpful to have a little bit of hands-on guidance from them to determine, for instance, does our well, I'll get into it in another slide here, but we have a district that I think could be in compliance. Does it in fact comply? Do you as an organization agree? And what other districts should we be looking at, and how should we implement this in a really, like, hopefully least painful way as possible? to get it through town meeting and to be in compliance. And so, with that, my initial thoughts on how we comply is, we do have the 40R Smart Growth District that was approved by the town a handful of years ago. It's over at Osgood Landing, as you all know. The area only pertains to what's labeled there, and I don't know if it's easy to read on that screen, but it's labeled residential zone, so it's kind of the tan area at the northernmost section of the highlighted area on the map. And that area is considered, it allows for multifamily by right, and I calculated, and this is back of the envelope on my part, approximately 20 acres of area in that space. So if that were to be the case, then that's approximately half of our required acreage that we need to cover in our zone. So that would be really helpful to be able to say to DHCD, we're already 26 acres of the way into our compliance with MBTA zoning. We just need to identify 25 additional acres elsewhere that can comply. It allows for 20 dwelling units per acre, so that's above the 15% unit per acre requirement. And there is a 20% affordability requirement, so that doesn't exceed what the cap would be for affordability that DHCD has laid out, but it would require that we demonstrate economic feasibility for being able to provide those units.
So we're hopeful that that's going to be compliant.
Yep. And then, in addition to that, I think we just have to think about it, and I'm just putting in these out there as discussions. I'm not suggesting these are, in fact, good ideas or that we should do this, but I think right now we're engaged in a process to potentially rezone our downtown. At least we have a consultant working on the project, and we've been engaging people in the public. We've had a couple meetings on it thus far, where we're looking at the downtown and rezoning it. So in that process, why not think about designating all or some of it as by right for multifamily housing development that can comply with these standards laid out in the Section 3A. So we want to think about that. And I put Royal Crest on here just because it's another large 76-acre parcel, as we all know all too well, that the current property owner has obviously an interest in redeveloping at some point in time. So if there was an interest to say, okay, well, maybe that needs to be the district. Now, I think there's a lot more complexity to that one, given the past history, the recent past history, but it's another one just to throw out there. But maybe there's more than we need to think about, and that's why I think we need to have some more internal discussions. We need to engage the planning board on this issue, and hopefully we can have some assistance from consultants like MHP that can help us with thinking about this in a little more detail.
And I'll just add there that Avalon already is 18 units per acre, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, one of the things that we need to discuss with DHCD is it as easy as making it by right, right?
Going to be my question.
It's our site plan review
Me
that
too.
really catches us up. Our site plan by special permit that really catches us up more than anything. So is it as simple as just removing that language from some of the places we've already zoned for housing, and we don't know the answer to that yet. But it's something that we're exploring now. So just to give you an idea, because I feel like when we talk about 15 units per acre, people get very angst about it. But Avalon's 18 units per acre, Princeton Properties is 21 units per acre, and Minko is 42 units per acre. So we already have areas where this has happened. So I don't think it's as kind of terrifying, and maybe people may think it is. And it's something that we maybe will just get our arms around more easily than we originally had thought when we were not going to be only dealing with 1,100 instead of 1,700.
Yeah. And to that point, Madam Town Manager, I mean, you have to consider this is a lot of communities are caught up in this right now, and many communities have not had as much development as we've had. So in other words, this is a big change for them. Whereas for us, and I think DHCD would consider 15 units per acre to be a low bar threshold to meet. And for us, we've kind of cleared that bar on a handful of projects. So,
but those places might not meet that 5 acre, well, they might, I don't know, but one of those requirements, right, was that that it was not less than 5 acres.
But you may be able to zone bigger, right? So
Yeah.
if you think about the mill area, maybe you don't just include Avalon, you include that whole area, right?
Okay.
Could you include Sutton Pond?
Perhaps.
Which
yeah.
is already, right,
Right.
exactly.
So that's kind of the thing we've been throwing around, how do we take what we already have and build off of that?
And they'll give us the guidance on whether those count as.
Yes.
Yeah, that was going to be my question. So most of the area that we're considering is already R4, which is multifamily.
The issue is that it's not allowed to build on by right. That we require special permit, site plan by special permit, and that's not allowed.
Oh, for the heavy, the more dense.
Yes.
Okay. That's what I was
That's
like,
the issue.
what am I missing here? Wait, that's it.
But it could be a simple fix, right? We're still kind of trying to figure that out.
Change the
And
language.
all of the policies and the regulations have kind of come out slowly and continue to change, which is always difficult. You guys all know what it's like when we're trying to implement something. So, we're still kind of trying to get our arms around it, but everybody is, so it's interesting.
Wasn't that special permit requirement enacted just a few years ago, like to have the multifamily by special permit?
I think we started using that as a tool, and unfortunately, we may have to pull it back in order to make it work. But yeah, it's a tool that we've been using with our multifamily development.
And you could hit the 50 acres in one zone, correct?
You could. The reason why I think it's probably not going to happen in our case, well, it could. I mean, let me just, because I pointed out the 40R district. So obviously, if that already complies, I think it's kind of a no-brainer to have that be part of the equation. Because why would you, why would you start looking elsewhere if you already had a compliant zone? The question then becomes, okay, maybe in that area where we currently, because the other sections of that 40R district, they allow for, or at least one of the areas allows for multifamily, but it's by special permit. So maybe it's a quick fix. Maybe you can get to 50 acres there. I don't know if there's 50 acres available there. I'd have to look. But maybe you could continue to add on to that, like 25 or so acres in that area.
I was just leaning towards the fact that Royal Crest is
Oh, yeah.
76 acres. But
It did say, there is language, and I don't know if I glazed over it somewhere in here, but there's language that speaks to it can't be one project.
can't do one project. Okay.
So, like, I don't know that Royal Crest on it, let's just hypothetically say it had passed and we made it a compliant district. I don't know if it would have been allowed by DHCD because it would have been a single project. I think they want to not have you cherry pick and say, okay, we're going to make this one project the compliant district.
Wow, they're really making this difficult.
Yeah, it's not, it's never easy when you're talking about trying to comply with state laws and they're spreading it across a broad spectrum of different communities. There's challenges there. There's no question.
And if we were to make, say, downtown, right, our district, and then, for example, take this Santander project, it's less than, that parcel is less than 5 acres. So does that not comply, or does the zone, the zone have to be?
We would certainly want to wrap that parcel into a larger amount of acreage
So, okay.
to count toward our
But
compliance.
then you start getting into like neighborhoods and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Well, and this is just sort of, you made me think of it. So some of that area is not far from, like, we'll call them religious nonprofits.
Mhm.
Does that count?
So actually it can. I know that may be scary to think about, but just
Not necessarily, because.
But just, bear with me, because it's like, if you zone that property where those religious institutions are located as by right multifamily, all it's saying is, it's saying if the religious institutions decided someday they don't want to be there anymore for whatever reason, I'm not suggesting that would ever happen, but if they did, then it's available for the next property owner to say, I can redevelop it as multifamily. But maybe it goes to another church and it never happens. Maybe it doesn't happen until hundreds of years from now, and maybe zoning has changed by then. I don't know. But, there's all kinds of things. But, yeah, you could feasibly zone that property. And just for the record, I think as part of this process with looking at downtown zoning, I think those parcels are being looked at to be rezoned, just to contemplate for that future potential of redevelopment. Not to say that they should be redeveloped, just that, if it comes down the pike at some point, that it's in place.
And just because we say 15 units per acre can fit here, does not require the developer to build 15 acres. 15 units per acre.
That's correct, actually. Yeah, it just needs to accommodate for at least 15 units per acre. They can ultimately build less than that. So that's kind of the interesting sort of dynamic here, is that they're not requiring that the production of units occur.
They just want
They're requiring that the capacity of the production of those units be there.
That is interesting.
So, I know I've taken a large portion of your agenda already, so I'll try to wrap this up. Consequences of noncompliance, we already kind of got into it. MassWorks, local capital projects funds, housing choice funding through the community one-stop process. Those types of projects are listed right there on that initial bullet under the initial line there. are the types of projects that we'd be able to miss out on if we were non-compliant. They're projects that can range anywhere from $20,000 to $4 million. And then just to give some context, over the last few years, North Andover's received approximately $5 million in MassWorks funding. And that includes like the sewer project on Route 125 and roadway improvements also on Route 125, separate project. It also includes about $141,000 of MassWorks funding that includes both what we're using for the downtown rezoning effort and a new housing choice grant that we were just awarded for looking at the old or what's going to be the former senior center to look at a feasibility study of what we can do to reuse that property. So we get a significant amount of funding through this for the state from these programs, and DHC has indicated that they would not grant us additional funding if we were to be found in noncompliance. Just to wrap it up, moving forward, we want to work with MHP hopefully on compliance and strategy. If not them, maybe another outside entity that can work with us. We want to engage stakeholders, planning board, town staff, general public. We need to submit an action plan to DHCD by the end of January. We want to request a determination of compliance for district compliance by late 2023. So when we're in a run-up to a town meeting in like early mid 2024. And we would hope that, by mid 2024 we can, have an approval of a newly compliant zoning district by annual or special town meeting. I think that's it.
Thank you, Anne. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for boiling that all down for us. I know there's probably reams and reams
Sorry,
of
I
documents that you
Can't
have to
wait
go
for the
over.
next part.
I find it interesting that they are requiring the zoning but not the production.
It's a bad message. It's not
Yeah.
really, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, no other comments about
Thank
that?
goodness they're not, because there's a lot of people that own property, and then it's zoned for that, and then we have to have the production. That would be,
Well, it's twofold though, right? Because Massachusetts is so unaffordable because we don't have the production. We don't have the housing stock. And on the flip side, it's private property, and are you forcing?
it's called a taking in order to make it work, which I would think would be terrible. Interesting.
So we will move on now to item B, which is the update on the senior center. So
Okay,
turn it over
so-
to town manager.
The senior center is going very smoothly,
Great.
thanks to people like Andrew and Jim Stanford and Kathy Shelp and Steve Foster, John Highland. We are moving along swimmingly. If you went by today, there was windows. I was so excited. But it's really coming along very smoothly. We're still looking at a late winter, early spring opening. The furniture was ordered. I think I signed the PO yesterday. So we are moving right along. But in the meantime, the Friends of the Council on Aging put out a request for fundraising, and they've started to get money in, which is very exciting. So it's not coming in to the town, obviously. It's coming into the Friends of North Andover Senior Center. And they approached me to see how we would be comfortable recognizing that support that they're getting. So they had some ideas, I had some ideas, and I just wanted to get your buy-in. So one of the ideas that they had, and if you got this flyer in the mail, did you get this flyer in the mail?
I got the email.
We can send it over to you right now. So they have donation categories. They have Friends, which is $25 to $4.99, Alumni, which is $500 to $9.99, a Supporter, which is $1,000 to $4,999, a Sponsor, which is $5,999, or a Legacy Donor, which is $10,000. And I believe right now they actually have either one or two Legacy Donors. So Kathy, I don't know if you guys know, but the Senior Center Director, Kathy Shelp, she actually was there when they built the Senior Center in Groton. So she's brought along a lot of great experience, which has been really helpful. So in Groton, what they did was they took the donation people and they basically made these plaques and they put them on individual rooms, basically. So they didn't name the rooms, but they basically said the room was sponsored by. So this is one of their ideas. Personally, for me, I'd rather see one big plaque near the front where it says Friend, list the names, Alumni, list the names, Supporter, list the names. But I did want to get all of your feedback on what you thought was more appropriate. In my experience, typically you'd create that one kind of board. It'd actually be the same material as kind of the dedication of the building, so it just folds right into the entranceway. But I did want to see what you all thought. There are 4 options. to where your donation could go. So building furnishing fund, they are still fundraising for their fitness equipment. So that's like the one thing they still have outstanding. The Lifelong Learning Senior Center Programs and Service Fund, the Fuel and Energy Emergency Assistance Fund, or wherever it's needed the most, which seems to be what most people are checking off, which is great. And so, yeah, I just wanted to get your feedback on whether you thought one individual plaque in the front would be better, or if you'd rather see these kind of individual plaques go up.
I think the one in the front, and the reason is this, there'll be discrepancy on what's a room that's used more, has more visibility, so let's just put them all together in a good location. Because then I was like, oh, I really wish I had that room, I do this at the old senior center, which is now the new room. I think one big one is just, it's fair to everybody, and it's not so, it has a nice sense of presence when it's a good size and not little ones scattered about the building.
I agree with that.
I agree.
My question is, so is this time framed, time boxed? Because let's say someone comes in with a legacy donation in 6 months from now, and how do we recognize that donation if we've got a...
We won't be able to, so I'll have to ask them about that. Maybe they need to send something out saying donations are only going to be accepted till the, a week before the opening or whatever it is.
Or if someone comes in with $10,000, you don't want to say, sorry.
No, you
too
can't
late.
only be a legacy member. I will ask them about that. Some places what I've seen is they will have one plaque and then they'll kind of make a second one because the donations keep coming in. But let me ask them. I'm going to the senior center tomorrow, Thursday. So while I'm there, I'll ask them kind of what their thought process was on when we would cut it off so that we could get because they're going to want it when they open.
Or design it in such a way that we can
You can add
to
Well, I was
it.
about to say that, like the selectmen that have been on since
Yeah, that's a good idea.
the beginning of time of
Yeah.
the town, that you just could add. They could be small engravable plaques, maybe not that design exactly.
Yeah, I would like it if it matched the
And
dedication
cool.
plaque,
But that's kind of my argument for maybe having those smaller plaques
Yeah.
distributed about, for a couple of reasons. One, people will wander around and look for their names
Mhm.
and see the different rooms, and and then they're also, you easily added onto it. You can put another, you get 10 donations, and you say, oh, okay, we're gonna put another plaque over here. Just a thought, instead of having one big, plaque on the front that we have to continue to add plaques next to. Just a second, different way of looking at it.
I think, so I had not thought of the idea of the little tags. That probably does make sense, like we do with the Employee of the Year and everything else. All right, so I'm gonna look at that.
You probably need to figure out where the space is and then see
Yeah.
what size, what scale would look good there, and then kind of go
And
from
how many
there.
people we have
And
now.
there might be other options for things
Yeah.
that can be added onto
Right.
easily or,
Mhm.
All right, I'll look at that. Okay, I just wanted to get some feedback, just to, I know we're not naming anything, but I want to make sure everybody's satisfied with how the way it looks. All right, got it. Thank you very much, and that is the update on the senior center.
all right. And we are going to move on to item C and hand it back to Andrew Shapiro, it looks like, for the quarterly update of the Master Plan Implementation Committee.
I can be very brief on this. I know you have the written progress report from the committee, and I want to apologize on behalf of Chair Jonathan Strauss and the Vice Chair Meredith Barnes-Cook. We have one of our esteemed members as well here, Stan Limpert, and of course our very own Selectman Valancourt as well. So a lot of power in the room for the Master Plan Implementation Committee. We've been hard at work over the last few months. We continually meet and discuss various projects, and as you can see here, the primary focus was to continue to kind of refine a website that we developed, which kind of outlines all the strategies and provides regular updates underneath those strategies about where we are on certain things. And for anybody at home watching and from you all, you can access that website if you go to the Master Plan Implementation Committee's webpage on the town's website. And right there's a link to the page. It kind of takes you to that separate page, and you can kind of thumb through all the different categories and strategies there are and see what the progress has been made. And so we've continued to look at kind of the progress has been made, and just to rattle off a few things that we've done or that we highlighted during those discussions. One is, For instance, Land Use Strategy 2, create a new base zoning district for downtown North Andover that is consistent with the goals of the master plan and encourages and incentivizes reinvestment. Well, as was part of the discussion we just had about multifamily housing, we are in the process of looking at rezoning downtown, so we're very much at work on this strategy. Housing Strategy 19, create an accessory dwelling unit bylaw that would allow small accessory residential units on existing residential parcels. My understanding is if you haven't done it already, you will soon be making it a goal on the select board to look at ADU bylaws. And I know that once that's done, I think the planning board is going to kind of take it from there and lead a process to see, should we in fact do that? If so, what's the reasonable path forward on that? What kind of language should we use? What should that look like? And so we're encouraged to see progress on that. Strategy number 4, for economic development, invest in infrastructure and for transportation. Invest in infrastructure and streetscaping to enhance the downtown as a pedestrian-friendly economic hub. A project that we've been working on, myself, Gene Enright, we got a state earmark about a year and a half ago to do some work around creating out a pedestrian path that connects the downtown to the Mills to Hill Trail. And so we're actively working with an engineering firm to sort of conceptualize that. We've had some initial discussions with property owners. We've done title research. We've looked at the right-of-way. So we are actively trying to activate those pedestrian connections. So hopefully in line with that strategy. And finally, historical cultural resources, natural resources, strategy number 773, create a local historic preservation master plan. I'm glad we have my friend Stan here because he and I have been in deep discussions over developing a master plan for historic preservation. And there is an available grant program through the Mass Historic Commission to provide funding to develop that type of plan. It would require some matching on our part, but I think we could do it. And I've had discussions with both the state, the Mass Historic Commission, about it, and with a qualified consultant who's helping us develop a proposal for it. That would be the basis of the grant application. So I'm looking forward to hopefully making good on getting this strategy knocked out as well. The only other thing I wanted to point out was that the committee is asking for, and I don't know how this would work administratively, but just some level of an alteration to their charge, I guess. They were asked to report out to you on a quarterly basis, which is great. But I think a little less reporting would be helpful, just so that we can bring you more robust reports like this one, which was collected over a little longer period of time. So I think they're requesting to dial back to biannually, so maybe once in January, once in July, and then additionally if needed. So if the select board's amenable to that change, I think they would appreciate that. And I think that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Andrew. So we can
Part
put
of
that
it.
on as a,
So we would
vote on our
that.
next meeting,
Okay.
yeah.
Perfect. Sounds good. Any other? Thank you, Andrew. We will move on now to licensing, and I will take a motion.
I'm sure we move into licensing.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Take it away.
All those in favor?
All those here.
Aye. Okay, thank you. We are now in licensing. As you have before you, there is an application from Paul Gallant on behalf of Merrimack College for a one-day all alcohol liquor license for a grand opening celebration on November 4th from 5 to 9 p.m. So as this reads, it is actually having something to do with the church. I was a little confused about that, or the chapel.
Yeah, so I think they did that renovation of their chapel in the basement where they put in kind of a
Is there a bowling
like a
alley down
flex
there?
space.
Like a-
Yeah, so I think it's like a
Yeah.
recreational
Big hall.
space. And I know it was a project they were working on pre-COVID, and now it appears that they have finished it and are asking to have their grand opening of it.
Okay, so we have, there's no restrictions.
We are requiring a police detail.
Yes, thank you.
And they
And
need
no
their-
outstanding items in this, other than what the certificate of occupancy.
Occupancy.
Yes, just as
It's kind of a big one.
That's the big one. So I would certainly do that pending
Yeah,
the certificate being
yeah, we
granted.
certainly want
Yep.
that functional and safe for a large gathering. There's no
Yes, so
question about that.
Paul will make sure that that happens.
Okay, so it would be, whatever recommendation would be, or a recommendation would be subject to the certificate of occupancy. The fire department says none. And the police detail is required, and health department is none. So the fire department, none, if they don't have a certificate of occupancy, wouldn't they sometimes make recommendations, making sure there's clear paths to all exits? and
Oh, yeah,
things
we
like that?
won't let them have anything without the certificate of occupancy.
Okay,
So, yeah.
so what it's basically saying is that the fire department would be working along with the building department to make sure,
Yes.
because that kind of threw me a little bit as well. Does anybody have any questions or concerns, or other than adding
No.
the certificate of occupancy?
It's interesting, they keep coming to us, asking us for stuff, and still causing some issues. But
It is what it
And
is.
we did meet with them today, so hopeful that we'll be able to work together on mitigating issues in the future.
feels like our only,
Yes.
our only recourse is through licensing.
Okay, if everyone's all set, I would entertain a motion.
I will move that the select board acting as licensing commissioners approve the application from Paul Gallant on behalf of Merrimack College for a one-day all alcohol liquor license for a grand opening celebration on November 4th, 2022 from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m., subject to obtaining the occupancy permit prior to the event.
And we need a police detail and certificate
And
of occupancy.
including a police detail, but that's outlined in the, yeah.
And the certificate of occupancy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Obtain, yeah.
In
occupancy
the
permit.
compliance, yeah,
And
what you were
they're in
saying.
compliance with the certificate of occupancy.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
A second.
And a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's a unanimous vote. Thank you very much. I'll entertain a motion to move out of licensing.
So moved, Madam Chair.
We have a
Second.
motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The gavel goes back to you.
Jumping over your head.
It's nice to hear. All right, so we are now back into new business. Having already taken care of item A, we'll move on to item B, the request of Keith Connors on behalf of North Parish Church to use a parcel of land on Academy Road for their annual Red Bow Fair on December 3rd, 2022, from 8 a.m. until 4 p.m. Are you here to speak to us? All right, come on up and tell us.
So as Keith comes up, we're just gonna let you know that, so there isn't really a
So there's
set
no-
way to request to use this parcel, and since it was close to the common, we winged it.
And I noticed it was a common
Yeah,
application.
so that's why you're seeing a common application when it isn't actually directly on the common.
Yeah, and if you need to see it, just took a couple pictures so you know exactly what
We-
parcel, but.
It was very all-inclusive in that
Oh, okay,
application.
good.
Thank you.
I had one of the 10 actually set up since we did a test run. So, yeah, so, you know, I'm from North Parish. I'm here with my sister who's going to be co-chairing with me for the Holiday Greens, which is one of the components of the Red Bow Fair that's been going on for many years.
Wow.
Okay.
There we go.
They lean
Yeah,
on-
they're excited. They lean on the button.
Maybe if you sat down at the mic. he would
Do you want him to sit, Bill?
Okay, sure.
There we go.
That's fine.
So we're excited. It's the first time, I think, in 3 years as many organizations is having the Red Bow Fair in person again. And where we're both new to this component of the Red Bow Fair, we thought it'd be wonderful to actually extract it from the parish hall and bring it outside in front of the church. Both it would be more visible that something's
Yeah.
going on in terms of a fair for the town, and also helpful for the sales of the wreaths and boxwood trees. So in the tent, which is going to be 10 by 20, it'll be along that pathway from Mass Ave to the circle that's right in front of our church between Academy Road and Mass Ave is where the tent will be erected. We'll be selling boxwood trees, holiday wreaths, and kissing balls, or mistletoe. And the actual fair is from 9 to 3, but we'll be taking the product from our shed in the back and moving it into the tent before the 9 o'clock time frame.
Sure.
And I do have one request for you all. As we were doing a test run on Sunday, we thought, you know what, this is taking longer than we thought. If we could erect the tent sometime Friday, not put anything in it, not advertise it, but just that it's there. So Monday morning we can get all the product into the tent for the 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock time frame. that'd be a huge help to us.
Did you say Monday morning?
If I did say Monday morning, I didn't mean that. I meant Friday morning. So the fair is Saturday morning, December 3rd.
Right, that's what I thought.
So you want to
Okay,
set
sorry.
the tent, you want to
Did I
set
say
the tent
Monday?
on
I'd like to
Friday,
set
yeah.
the tent up
And
on
Friday, yeah, and Friday
But
would be
not
the-
waiting till Monday, so, yeah, sorry. I was gonna say,
sorry, I
really?
didn't mean to say Monday.
Well,
So-
you got a lot of things going on in your head, you want to make sure you cover, so sometimes
Yeah.
the wrong day slips out. Happens to all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the request, and we humbly present the request to you guys.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? I think it's,
Look forward to the Red
I'm
Bull Fair.
excited that you're gonna move it outside.
We look
and
forward
catch
to it
people.
coming back
Yeah.
live and in person. So.
Yes. If there are no questions, I will take a motion.
I would move approval.
I
I'll
have a
second
motion. I have a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Wonderful.
Including setting up the tent on Friday. That's
Right.
Okay, great. Well, thank
Okay.
you very much. I really appreciate
Great.
it, everyone.
Thanks for coming
your
in.
time serving. Okay.
Thank you. That was nice. We don't hear that too often.
Item C under new business is the fiscal year 24 budget policy statement. So handing it back over to you.
It's so
Your
exciting.
favorite time of year.
It is.
It's here already.
I know, I can hardly
It was
believe it.
just here.
It's so exciting. I'm telling you, I should run around these people commercial. It's very exciting. It's very exciting, and I'm very happy. And Lynn has been like locked in her office, working on financial forecasting and the capital plan, and I'm just so happy. But this is our annual budget policy statement. It kicks off our budget and gives us some direction for the year, which is very exciting. So basically what we do is incorporate most of the goals, because as you know, the goals that we set as a select board are really setting our priorities and goals, and the budget is truly a policy document. And so we're excited to get moving this year. There's nothing in here that's really a major change. We have not made any changes to any of our financial policies. Those are the same as they have been in the past. I will note that our free cash has been certified at $12,697,037. It's a lot again this year. We did spend it down to $5 million last year. It's been a weird time with the permit applications we have coming in. Like, just as a for instance, Amazon pulled an electrical permit that I don't think they realized that they were going to need initially, and that was a $1.5 million permit fee. Okay. So there's just some weird stuff that's happened that has created excess free cash again. Our stabilization fund at the end of this fiscal year is estimated to be at $5.58 million. Our capital stabilization account is estimated to be at $4.6 million, which is really exciting because it's one of the things that's helping us with Facilities Master Plan 2. The special ed stabilization account has stayed solid at $771,000. We've avoided using that the last few years because we're really trying to fund operating with operating, and that's gone really well. And our OPEB trust fund has held fairly steady at $5.6 million. And actually, interestingly, we are finally seeing interest. It's bad for everyone else when the mortgage rates and the interest rates and everything else go up. It's great for us because we're finally starting to see interest on a lot of our accounts, which is really important and a big thing that we were missing in our revenues last year. So next week is our first meeting of the Revenue and Fixed Cost Committee, and we're moving forward.
Okay.
So what's the grand total of all of those? Did you say that? I'm sorry.
Of all of our stabilizations.
If you don't have a calculator, don't
I
worry
don't.
about it. That's okay.
I know, I can tell you that our
Maybe we don't want to know because
well,
it's going to be a big number.
It is, I mean, no, it's not a bad thing. It's all of our savings.
No, it is.
you know?
It's a good thing.
Yeah,
but
I mean, I can tell you that, our cash on hand at the end of last June was $15 million, which is a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, we're in a very good financial position right now. So, and that's a good thing. And it's because we've been very diligent with our savings and making sure that we have reserves and that we've planned for not just 5 years, but 20 years. So it's been really positive. But I mean, our reserves right now, not including free cash, 11, 16, almost $20 million.
And that's not including that free cash
Not
number.
including the free cash number.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Again, I've said before on the air that I remember when we had negative free cash. We were literally, no joke, people at town hall were almost passing the hat to get stamps. Like towards the end of the fiscal year, does anybody have stamps? I gotta get some mail out. That's amazing.
It really is.
It's been a long haul, but we've all been focused on
It's
this. There's a
diligence
right way
that
and a
pays
wrong
off.
way to plan, and that includes, the finance committee, staff,
Oh, everybody.
town manager, everybody getting on the same plan, and a lot of it had to do with Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
All those permit fees.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's it takes the entire community to be diligent and stay on plan, right? Because it's really easy to be distracted by something that's
spend like
sparkly and
crazy.
glittery, right?
Yes.
So, it's kudos to town meeting and the finance committee for kind of sticking with that plan, because it's hard. It's like budgeting for your own home, right? So,
But it's been the same message for a very long time, I would say. Over 20 years, again, when the hat was being passed around for stamps, people started to get it, that you have to stay within budget. Better than that, you need to budget conservatively, so there will be free cash at the end of the year.
And we're finally seeing, over the last maybe month, revenues come back to where they were pre-COVID. That was really where we were hurting the most, and we're seeing more stability. So I think, that's an important part of it too, so.
The other thing too is the OPEB. I mean, I think I remember when we put the first $50,000 aside for OPEB. I don't think it was the trust fund, it was the other fund that we had set up originally. I think it was revolving account or something like that.
Yeah,
we set up.
pre-trust fund,
Yeah, and now we've got 5.5 million in there, so I mean, that was 50,000. And that was probably less than 10 years ago, and now, through smart whatever, we've
More
got
planning.
Well planning, yeah, great planning.
It's an investment, right? That's an important thing to invest in, because we're putting that $6,000 per employee in right now for the first 2 years of their employment. So it's really been making a big difference in getting that account to where it needs to be. So, which is great. Not most communities, or many communities, created that OPEB trust fund and really never funded. So
Right.
this makes a big difference.
It's great.
And it keeps our bond rating up,
Mm-hmm.
that we're doing all this planning, we have all these reserves. I mean,
Absolutely.
can you go any higher than AAA? Is it the AAA
We
with
gotta
a
try.
star on it?
Yeah.
Gold star.
Extra gold star?
I love that.
Let's put a request in for that.
Okay. If any other comments? If not, I will certainly take a motion.
Great job to the whole team.
Thank you.
So I'll make a motion that the select board approve the budget policy statement for FY 2024.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Thanks for your diligence. Item D is to sign the warrant for the election on November 8th, 2022. So
If you want, we could share some data with you
Sure.
that Dawn sent us.
that would be great.
Let me see if I can find it, Laurie. We're doing this new thing right now called the Friday Five, where we're sharing with all of our employees like 5 good things that happened during the week, or 5 things they should know about. So we included some of it in there this week, I think. But so far, just for the November election, the town clerk's office has distributed 6,385 ballots and has already had 1,566 returned. So, I mean, that was as of last week. So I think when we were leaving, so every time we receive an application or we get a ballot back, they timestamp it, and it's right below my office. So all day it's just the timestamp machine, and it was still going, right? When we were leaving, I'm like, they're still doing it.
Like a ticker tape.
It's unbelievable. I don't hear it anymore, but they've really been busy. On Saturday they had, how many did you say? 58 come through on Saturday. But I think it's going to be a great turnout. So
Great.
yeah.
And the clerk's office is doing a phenomenal job.
Yeah,
of
they're great.
Thank you. Yeah, they
processing
deserve
your
a lot
turnover.
of
There's,
credit for
the town
their-
clerk and 2 other people in that office. So
It's a lot
they're really
to
doing a
manage.
great job.
Well, one thing about the town clerk and her staff, they all come to that counter with a big smile. What can
Yeah,
I
they're
help you with?
fantastic.
It is so warm and so welcoming.
Yeah.
It's great also too for new businesses or people that move to town, that they get a really nice smiling face and ready to help and serve. They're doing a great job.
They're great.
They really are. They're fantastic at
And they know how to have a little fun and laugh along the way and make people laugh.
Good people.
That
People really appreciate that, though. They need
they
to.
do. We all
yeah.
need a little. We need a little laughing going on these streets.
It's really amazing how many hours they're open for voting.
It's fantastic. I actually was sending it out to people
Mhm.
because that's that calendar saying,
Mhm.
here, just go, especially the elderly. So it's good.
Yeah, so easy.
Definitely. Okay, and everybody had a chance to look, and if there's no other comment, we will move on to, I will take a motion to approve and sign the warrant for the election on November 8th, 2022.
Madam Chair, I'll move the select board approve and sign the warrant for the election on November 8th, 2022.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 We have the 4.
Could we amend it if we wanted to?
What, the end of the
What'd you
meeting?
just say?
Is that what you're saying?
I said, could we amend it?
I can just
Add
do it.
people.
Is that okay if I just do it now?
Right. We'll make our own ballot.
Is there more than one? Okay.
Great. Okay, item E is to approve the charge and membership of the middle school building committee. So you can talk to us a little bit about that.
Yes, absolutely.
Melissa.
So,
Who's your first?
as you know, we can have more than one school building committee. Thank God, because it's a lot of work. And we have 2 buildings currently that we have basically under either feasibility or design. At last town meeting, the middle school design funding was appropriated, and we're in the middle of interviewing owners, project managers now, actually, yesterday, right? We did one yesterday. And are picking that person. And so we're looking to create this committee. It's a little bit smaller and a little bit different than what the school building committee requires through the Mass School Building Committee requires, but we think it will work well for what we're doing here. So we are recommending the following people, which would be the Assistant Town Manager / Director of Operations. As you know, when Laurie was promoted, all of the Facilities Master Plan 2 implementation falls under her. The Facilities Director, the Superintendent of Schools or his designee, the middle school principal, 1 middle school teacher designated by the middle school principal, 1 select board member, 1 school committee member, 1 middle school parent, and 1 resident with engineering / construction experience. And as you know, maybe 3 weeks ago, we did put out that we would be looking for people for this committee, and we did start getting resumes in and have already done, the subcommittee has already started doing interviews. But we want to create the committee tonight, and then at our next meeting, we can start talking about doing the appointments.
Great.
Yeah. So we got 5 excellent candidates with engineering construction experience that we interviewed.
It's amazing.
So it really was amazing. I mean,
What
their
a
experience.
request for people to
Yeah.
join that. Oh, no, excuse me, that's the other one. That's the house.
Yeah.
But
But
still,
It's
we
been-
did a lot for
We've got
that.
a lot, yeah,
A
very
lot for
qualified
that.
interest, so
But
it
it
will,
was, those 5 people really fit the bill, and middle school parents too.
Yeah.
I hope you guys are making a short list of all the new volunteers that we can,
Right?
right? I mean, it's
Right.
amazing.
They
I've
can't
never
be
seen
on
such
this
a-
Definitely,
Yeah.
yes, we are, and we really try to talk them to considering other boards too that need members, as well.
That's great.
I think that, looking at the membership for this committee and the charge really important that the committee gets input from the stakeholders and the people who are going to be working in the building about design, so and the membership looks varied, and
Mm-hmm.
it'll be great. So, if there's no other comment, I will take a motion.
I will move that the select board approve the charge and membership of the middle school building committee.
I have a motion, I'll take a second.
Second.
A motion and a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Great.
Could you give us a quick update, or not, because it's not on our agenda, just sort of where you
On the middle
stand
school?
on the process?
Yeah, so we're just hiring the OPM right now. We have the designer, because we're using, through our last bid process, we included when we did the feasibility and the facility master plan 2, that we could also use them for design. We saved a lot of money and time doing that.
And that's MVG?
That's MVG, yeah. I keep wanting to call them other things like MVP, but not what it is, MVG. And now we're meeting with them and talking, but we're a little bit on hold because we want to make sure that we have all of the stakeholders at the table before we start kind of moving things forward. Right now, a lot of it is, site work and feasibility, like the big things. But we're pretty much roaring and ready to go as soon as this committee is pretty much ready. Anything you want to add, Larry?
No, just we're hoping that we'll have the OPM decision by Friday. We're finishing up this week with interviews, and then we'll bring our recommendation to Melissa and get them on board.
Yeah. So any project over $1 million, any municipal building project over $1 million requires an owner's project manager. So it actually is a good practice because it's somebody who advocates for us.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yep.
it'll be a great thing to have them
Yeah.
on
A
board.
good one is worth
Yes.
their weight. Yeah.
For
Yeah.
sure. So that's where we are. But I anticipate once this is formed, we'll be moving pretty quickly
Fast,
on getting
yeah.
things
So
done.
MVG is probably starting to move forward with design a
So
little bit.
they've been talking about like the site.
Mm.
And I think at one point you maybe had even said that you were concerned about building on the inside.
Mhm.
They're really looking more at the outside now.
Okay.
So that requires just a little bit of a change of their initial schematic for
Mhm.
us to even think about. So they've been talking about that.
Okay.
When you're talking about the inside and the outside, are we talking the courtyard?
Yes.
Yeah, and
Versus-
we've moved
Yeah.
away from the courtyard now.
That you
Oh,
are
that's
going
good.
to fill it or leave it open?
We're gonna leave it open.
That's what I thought you said.
Yeah.
That will make a lot of people that was the school they graduated from,
Yeah.
or went there.
It would be
Yeah.
disruptive to build in the middle of the school, I think. More disruptive than it would be to do an addition. It's easy to put that kind of safeguards up and do the addition. So, but making sure there's enough space to do that, understanding the grading, understanding where the utilities are,
Right.
are all things that like they can do now before they really
Yeah.
have to get into the nitty gritty of the design.
Okay.
So.
And it's also probably more expensive to build it in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
That
think
makes
so.
sense.
How do you get the equipment in?
Right,
It's gonna be
that's,
really difficult.
Can't
that's
go
the
right
point.
through the
Yeah.
door.
Really hard.
Exactly.
It's like, oh, wait, we
So-
need that
Yeah.
thing
It
that
doesn't
digs a
make-
big hole. How are we
Yeah.
gonna get that in there?
That would be really
Yeah.
challenging.
It was hard. The way they did
Gym
it.
class.
And super
Everyone grab a
disruptive.
shovel.
Super
Yeah.
disruptive.
We also lose a lot of natural light, which isn't great,
No.
right? So,
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, the
that
way
was
they
my
did it.
first reaction. You
Mhm.
wonder, it's, I wasn't thinking light, I was thinking of air quality.
yeah, true.
The way they did it, they tried to preserve some natural light,
Mm.
but that made it more difficult to build.
I'm sure.
But
Yeah.
if they had just closed it all in, I think it might have been easier, but then you lose the natural light. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like a catch-22.
It is. So they've moved away from that now, and I think it'll be easier. So,
Cool.
I
yeah.
think the most exciting thing is that it is
Moving.
actually happening. So it's great news. All right, item F is the approval of ARPA funding, and we have two applications to review. First would be the COVID impact on employees program.
Okay. So just as an update on our COVID spending generally, so currently we have projected or committed $4.4 million out of the $9 million. So obviously we still have significant amount of capacity. The last time I updated this worksheet, we've actually only spent $245,000 because all of these projects are kind of ongoing and started, but not like at their end fruition yet. So the actual spending so far has not been so high. But the true request that you're hearing tonight, the first one is a small one. It's $3,000, and it's to do employee training and intervention regarding the impact of COVID on employees. So in the past, particularly during COVID, we had a big focus on customer service training and also on de-escalation training. And those were two things that really were helpful during this time period. And I don't know if anyone else has noticed in their workplace, but it's a little bit higher stress, and people are a little bit more agitated and angry maybe than they have been in the past. And so giving our employees the tools to work with people has been really important. However, also during COVID, we did an anxiety training, and actually it was with the same consultant. And it was an online training, and we actually had 61 out of our 162 employees attend it. And I was shocked because I'm pretty sure it was just me and Dee and Laurie. And then all of a sudden all these people start coming in, and I'm like, oh my God. And it became evident that people are looking for resources in order to not burn out and to kind of figure out how COVID has impacted the way that we operate and how we can best operate in this kind of new atmosphere that we're in. So what this would do is it's $3,000. It would be 4 60-minute classes for small groups. So, one of the things that we're trying to do is kind of
give our employees some resources, but also give them confidence that we hear that it's been hard, and that we understand that it's been a difficult thing to deal with, and that it's okay sometimes to focus on that self-care element, which has been difficult, I think, for most people. So it'll be smaller groups, 25 people per group, 60 minutes. We could tape it, but I don't really want to because I think that wouldn't be helpful, so that part wouldn't happen. We have talked to the schools about whether or not they would also want to implement something like this. Unfortunately, most of their, they plan out their professional development time like 3 years in advance. It's amazing. So they wouldn't be able to fit this in this year. But it's something we'd like to do for the employees. So that's one of the requests. The second request, I'm actually super excited about. So one of the things, as I've met with employees over the last 3 years that I've heard, is that we have had some issues and troubles with communications, particularly Spanish speaking. And we do have several Spanish speaking employees. What will happen now is that if we have someone who calls or comes to the desk from the collector's office or to our office, we basically have to kind of run and find our Spanish speaking employee or get them on the phone and then have them work with us to try to kind of muddle through. So we put out a survey just saying to employees, would you be interested in taking conversational Spanish? It would be business-oriented Spanish. It would be to cater to who's in the class. So, for instance, if we had people from the tax collector's office, they would learn words like taxes, abatement, things that they need in order to operate. We actually had 42 employees who signed up as being interested, and they're from literally every front-facing department, which was really exciting. I mean, we had 2 in assessing, we had 2 in community support, so both of our community support coordinators, everyone in conservation, numerous DPW employees, 2 people at Elder Services. We had, I think, 6 firefighters and 6 police officers, 2 911 dispatchers. The person who does the passports at the library, she said, this would be huge for me. So it was really everyone at Veterans, somebody in the water department who said, I do the meter reading, and to me to be able to communicate with people would be huge. So it was actually, very refreshing, and we got all these responses of people who were like, I'm willing to invest. It's going to be 30 weeks for an hour a week, and they're willing to invest the time in order to be able to best communicate with the public, which I think is huge. So this would be through our community college, and it would be for 42 employees. They'd run 2 classes, and it would be 60 hours of training, and it would be run here at Town Hall. We would run one in the morning and one in the afternoon, so we could try to at least, first of all, make sure we have coverage in our offices, but also catch 2 different shifts at police, which would be really important. So this is the cost to train 42 employees in customer service Spanish.
I think both of these are great because I think training is so critical for staff, and it also just gives them a little bit something different to do for the day. And so like the $3,000. I mean, that's a no-brainer. That's $30 of an employee, right? To put them through 60 minutes of some training that's going to benefit them. I'd actually say I hope you serve coffee and donuts or something to get them all to come in, but I think it's a great use of money, and again, so reasonable. And then if you do this one, I mean, this one's 60 hours of training, 42 employees. It comes out to like $12 an hour, per person. So it's an absolute no-brainer to give these people the skills they need to continue to do their job and do it better.
And benefit the community.
I feel so strongly that we need to care for our people so they can care for our people,
Our
right?
residents.
That's how we take care of our community.
We should be able to service everybody.
It's so beneficial to the front facing.
Sorry, could you just go over the seminar? So what exactly are they, is it just about talking about the impacts to the residents?
So a lot of it is about the resources, self-care resources, and what you can do as an employee when you're feeling like you're under stress or under anxiety or overly burdened by what's happening around you.
So giving you the tools to cope with the added stresses of COVID.
Yeah, I mean, we have some employees, especially who are more of our front end employees who, I don't want to say put up with a lot of abuse, but I mean, you heard it from Rick, right? Who have kind of been continually yelled at about numerous things over the last couple of years. And it contributes to burnout, and that's something that we're really trying to avoid, because I don't know if you've heard, but it's really hard to get employees.
We need to keep the employees we have,
It's really hard right now.
Right.
And so, if we can contribute to not having our employees burn out,
Yep.
and they keep coming and giving us this great product every day,
Yep.
I mean, that's huge.
And how do you separate, right? Like, just
Yeah.
because they're upset and
Yeah.
yelling at you, it doesn't mean
Right.
that you're not doing your job.
Right, we talk a lot about draining the bathtub. Like, how do you interact with somebody and have it be a not great interaction, and then figure out how you're going to drain the bathtub and move on to the
And move
next
on.
person that you need to help, right? And so learning how to do that and learning those skills is really important.
I found that those skills, though, in the past, even without COVID, is sometimes for even board members, just dealing with the public. They come in, they're very nervous, they're talking on TV, and how to diffuse the situation. The only thing that I would ask that we also be cognizant of, our public is going through the same thing, and we're paying $3,000 to get our employees trained, and the public is feeling 60% increases in the cost of keeping their house warm, and they're looking at $3,000. I just wish we could be more outreach to the public to help them also learn to cope with what they're being hit up against. For them, $3,000 would maybe, heat their good-sized home for the whole year with the increases. I just don't. The public is really going through a lot, and they're feeling and seeing a lot coming at them, because we're being told all this stuff is going to be raised. I mean, I was talking to Lori a little bit about it. Large brown eggs are $8 a carton now. So I just want to make sure there's sensitivity that we're spending taxpayers' dollars, even though it's just $3,000, to help our employees, and our public's going through it maybe even worse, because they might not have a job, or all that's going. And then the statistics coming out with what the kids are going through in schools. There's so much going on with our citizens. I just want to make sure that we are sensitive to the fact that, yes, we're spending $3,000 for the employees to better service you, but I would really like to think about something, what can we do for the public who needs to come in, especially if you live alone or you're a single parent and you're under tremendous pressure, is how do we capture them to they're in need as well, and it is their taxpayer dollars. And I'm trying to say it as delicately as I can, but I do
Isn't
feel
that
as
what
though-
we-
If I could just comment, go ahead.
Oh,
Laura, go ahead.
well, I appreciate that. It's part of what we talked about with National Grid, right? And giving some rebates on energy.
I understand that.
Right, last time.
But the $25 isn't just going to cut it. We've got to come up with something better than giving each.
Well,
And we talked about that. We did.
Right, we asked if you wanted us to focus on people who are unable to pay their bills or who are low income. I mean, I think it's also really important to remember that, we funded the community health assessment, we funded the age-friendly initiative, we funded the social worker at the youth center who's also working at the schools, whose focus is entirely on mental health, and we also funded Crystal's entire position through the earmark for APA. So, I think one of the things that we really heard from the survey that we did was that there was a real concern about mental health, and so we've put a lot of funding towards mental health, but we're trying to come at it from so many different angles. And if you have an employee who's trained to figure out, I have to use these different resources for myself in order to work with this person, they may also then say, wow, that was not a great interaction. I'm concerned about that person. Maybe I should call Crystal, right? Maybe I should call Deanna. So I think, having those resources is important. But I do also think, and if you think about what APA was originally intended for, and we've been kind of lucky because we fall under that revenue number that we can use it for really any municipal purpose, a lot of that was also prioritizing employees who are on the front line, and so I don't want to lose sight of that either.
But I guess I would ask that you look to see if perhaps some of the programs would train staff also how to help our citizens as they come forward or whatever. You mentioned it a little bit in what you just said. I just don't want to lose sight that a lot of people are hurting right now.
Mm-hmm.
People who are, they're worried about their jobs because there's layoffs, because businesses aren't doing as well and are closing. that I just don't want to lose sight that, yes, we're taking care of our employees with this program, but how do we extend that to the people who pay the bills? So.
Yeah. I mean, I hope that we've done that. If you don't feel like we have, I'm more of it open to ways to try to address that. For me, employee wellness and our employee culture is so important because honestly, it's one of the things that makes North Andover special. And so investing in that is also, I think, also needs to be a priority. But if there's other ideas on ways that we can address mental health beyond, I mean, I think we're hitting the youth center and we're hitting the schools, so we're getting out of that metric. We've been talking to Rick over at Community Partnerships on what we can do there because there will hit adults, right? And one way that we haven't. We're investing in the senior center. So I guess if there's some group that we're missing, please let us know. And if people at home have ideas on, how we could help with that, I'd love to hear that because I just.
Well, that's my point.
Yeah.
But what I said just a few moments ago, perhaps there was a training program for the staff. We have some, but just to keep their eyes open as to how we can help our citizens.
Isn't this partly what this is going to do, right? This is.
Well,
I think for a bang for a buck, I mean, this is $3,000. It's going to train 100 employees. So for $30 per employee to provide or to be able to recognize distress or recognize people who may be in difficulties. I mean, I think it's, for as far as investment wise, I mean, it's $30 a person for 100 employees.
If that's what it does, but my understanding was to help the employees learn how to cope themselves.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I was saying that is there a training proponent that we can reach the public as
I think
well?
part of that, no doubt, is when they.
Well, she didn't say that, but
Right.
Well, I think it's a natural extension, right? If they can take care of themselves, they will use those skills also, right? This is skill building so that they can also support. These people are public facing, and I've seen it myself in this building.
Well, I'm sure you see it in the building that you work
yes.
in.
Definitely. But I see it, and hearing that, like the benefits go well beyond to the employees themselves. It will really.
I think I've made my point. It's not that I'm trying to. I just want us all to be cognizant at all times that it's the whole town pretty much. It's the whole country pretty much that people are frightened. They're losing money. They're losing their retirements. I mean, that we just to make sure that it's. And all I'm asking is let's keep our eyes open for opportunities where we can do public outreach for people who are also hurting, perhaps living alone. They're suffering from some mental issues as well.
Absolutely.
So I'm just curious, are you talking about like an additional training so to be able to sort of read between the lines a little bit more as maybe the clerks?
Or just even programs that are open to the public that help them diffuse how they're feeling. I think I made my point is just let's see if we can also get the public if they need.
Well, maybe, I mean, so this is $30 per person, right? Maybe this is a trial through the town and staff, and maybe this is something that, excuse me, you can bring to the larger public, right? Maybe we can run a couple seminars.
For a bigger
and maybe we can run a couple seminars that have 100 people in a seminar and for $30 a person, and maybe we use the funds to teach the citizens coping skills also.
John does all kinds of trainings like this across the state. He does a lot of work in Arlington.
Who is that? I'm sorry.
John Mettleman, the man who were hired to do this one. So he does, and actually his focus is that on the ones that I have seen are a lot about teen anxiety and tween anxiety and helping parents figure out how to cope with that. But he does tons of training across the state. And one of the things that, if I remember correctly, when we approved Rick's request, was that you all asked Rick to have this new person who's posted right now work on trainings for the community at large. And I think we actually talked about, could they bring in John? So, I think that ball is moving forward.
It made me think of something a little bit off topic, but kind of the same as we're all talking. And because so much of this is centered around financial concerns, there are approaches when somebody loses a job. What bills should get paid first? How you pay your different bills to make your money stretch? I don't know, maybe information on that, or even just a newsletter that if you're suffering with some financial concerns, these are some of your avenues that maybe you can get assistance, but this is a way you can balance your budget to make it stretch longer. For example, you really got to pay your mortgage. that you can't be without a home, but maybe you can put minimum payments on your charge cards just to give you some more capital to keep the family or yourself up and running. Just another thought as we're talking that might take some of the pressure off that they're going to be feeling when they're like, what do I get? Do I get gas or do I get food? Or do I, keep the house warm? That might be another avenue too, to put out a seminar or a newsletter suggesting this is the way you make the existing money that you have stretch a little bit further.
Does that kind of speak to we were talking about getting the information out about the utility assistance?
We could do it more comprehensively than that.
That's a great idea, to use that money versus the small amount. Maybe that's something we should look into, because I think because if people don't always have great budgeting skills, a lot of people don't have great budgeting skills, but they clearly say when you lose a job, there's certain things that you need to keep. You got to have a home. And you got to have a car to maybe get to a job. But other than that, you should be spreading things out. I don't know, that's a really good idea, that maybe that would be a good alternative, how to make your money spread further.
Resources and assets that are available.
And some comprehensive, gather
more than just
resources,
energy
like
resources.
And that will
other
certainly,
resources.
and that will certainly uplift the mood of people who are feeling that pressure of that. I'm afraid, am I going to have enough money to just keep the family afloat? But yeah, I think that's a great idea. That was, and honestly, this was a good topic because I think it spurred on maybe some other ways that we can be helping our citizens. And I think I've said it all.
I think it's important, and we can always do more, but let's not forget that we are doing that work every day. Like, there are people, our community support services, our schools, there are people doing that work every day. So even through the senior center, we can always do more, but it's not that is ignored.
Can I add another future topic? I did mention it to Lori. I know it's not on the agenda, but I did mention it to her. And I don't know where we stand, and probably Laura, because she has children in the schools. And maybe they won't. What's been all over the news today is the test scores are terrible for the kids because of the COVID. And I'd like to get something of a report from the school department and to see, can we help them initiate programs to try to get our kids up to speed? Whether it's tutoring or something.
They've been working on it. I know that. But.
So I just think you hear that, and I do think, frankly, I think kids can be pretty resilient. You get them on track, you'll find that their scores they'll catch up quick. But I think if anything that COVID has really affected is our kids, and keeping them up to speed with their test scores and their knowledge. And we've just got to kind of get them back retrained, and maybe offering, like I said, whatever the schools think, if there's a boost, and maybe we could use some of the funds to get some tutoring money for these kids to get them up to speed.
And they've been doing the Accelerated Academy, and they've been bringing in the extra resources and all that.
They had extra staffing,
extra funds, right?
Extra
and
funds.
Maybe they just
this is where you would know.
They have a whole pool
my
of
guys
money.
aren't in school anymore,
Right.
not for that.
They have a whole pool of money for that purpose.
Okay,
The
so
ESSER
they do.
funds,
So they used the $2.6 million in free cash for that we gave them, not
Okay.
this town meeting, but the last town meeting. And then they have their own
Yes, sir.
ARPA funds, basically. It's called
Yeah.
ESSER. And they've been using that. And actually, the money that the 5.34% increase that we gave the schools this year allowed them to keep all those employees on that they had hired. So that was a huge benefit. I know that they did their own data analysis and did a data presentation at their last school committee meeting. So if you watch that, it actually
Watch it on tape. Okay.
Yeah, it actually might be hugely helpful. I mean, obviously, we don't have any jurisdiction. We could invite
No, we
them.
did- no,
we
we-
could invite them and they may come.
Or even just
Yeah.
get messages out to the public. This is how you maybe you can read to your children.
Right.
Maybe you can go over their times tables or whatever and try to get them up to speed.
I will say one of the nice things that they did do at Atkinson is, because those kids in kindergarten in 2020 got really hit hard with reading, because it's such a fundamental time. What they did with the extra resources is they made 4 first grades. So they made the
Small
classrooms smaller.
classrooms.
And even Colton now, they kept it in second grade the next year. So even Colton's class has 4 second grades where they typically didn't in Atkinson, just to keep those numbers down so that you could get the extra help to the kids. So
I do understand that it's not our jurisdiction. However, I think there's a lot of concerned families out there, and anything that we could maybe be supportive of.
Absolutely.
Sure. Or even have them do a presentation at one of our meetings is how we, parents, grandparents, older brothers and sisters, can help these kids to catch up.
I think we'll see a lot about it during the budget this year.
Agreed.
You'd be surprised.
Okay. I guess I opened the door, come.
No, it's good.
it's budget season. It's budget season.
I think we'll
We
hear
get
a
all
lot
the
about
info
it
during budget
this
season.
year.
I guess the long and the short of what I'm saying is there's still a lot of help that needs out there, and whatever avenue we can grab and help somebody will make a better town.
Yeah, and they have the application too, the opera application's available to all the department heads and the schools, so hopefully we'll see a few applications come through from them as well.
Okay,
So far,
great.
everything we've seen
Great.
from them has been security oriented, which is great, but hopefully we'll see something maybe education or curriculum oriented.
Okay, so
Okay, I think
No
I've got,
further-
those are my
there's-
ideas for the day.
if there's no further discussion, can we take them together, actually, right? Or, yeah, we can take them together. I'll take a motion.
Madam Chair, I move the select board approve the funding from ARPA for a program to address the COVID impact on employees and for a conversational Spanish training for employees, $3,000 and $30,000 respectively.
Okay, I have a motion. I'll take a second.
I'll second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Moving on to consent items, we have one item to accept a donation in the amount of $100 from Smart Start LLC to the fire department.
Madam Chair, I'll move approval with our thanks to Smart Start.
I have a motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, and thank you to Smart Start. Moving on to the approval of minutes, we need to approve the open session minutes of October 3rd and October 11th. Any questions or concerns about either of those dates?
So I have 2 questions, I guess. On the October 3rd meeting minutes, the makeup of 400 Great Pond Road still says 1 at-large member, but the motion says 3. So is that okay, or should that be adjusted
I would adjust it to.
to the 3? Right? And then on the October 11th, all our appointments are listed, but their term ending is not.
Okay, so make sure it's fixed.
We'll add.
Sorry about that, I didn't catch that.
Oh, that's
Okay. If there are no other comments, I'll take a motion.
Madam Chair, I'll move approval of the minutes from open session for October 3rd and for October 11th, 2022.
Pending the.
Pending that, yes, with the changes, with the updates that were
add-ons.
suggested.
Okay. Great, I have a motion. I'll take a second.
Oh, I thought, okay, I'll second. I thought
Okay.
I heard somebody.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. There is nothing under old business tonight, so I will pass it back to you, Town Manager, for Town Manager's report.
Now I'm gonna talk about trash.
Great.
Um,
I knew it.
I got a call before the meeting about that.
Yeah,
It's very
there's-
frustrating. I'm very frustrated. So I got 52 emails today about trash. So I know it's an issue, and I'm sorry. So it's a very difficult situation that we're in right now. So Friday and Monday's trash were finished today, which is Tuesday. They were picking up the last section of Monday when I talked to them at 5 o'clock. Tomorrow, we're gonna have an extra trash truck in town, and by the end of the day tomorrow, we should be completely up to date on pickup. However, that does mean that trash sat out from Friday until Monday, which is unacceptable. In case you haven't heard, JRM merged with Republic Trash Company, and so we actually have a new carrier who is fulfilling out the contract that JRM held with the town. We're not the only community that's suffering these growing pains with the change. So if you've been watching the news, Lawrence's trash was out there for actually a couple of weeks.
That's awful.
Reading has had the same issues that we're having, and so has Melrose. I understand there's actually more communities as well, and so we've kind of all started to chat about, what our next steps are going to be. We have gotten town council involved, and so if need be, we can start to kind of continue to escalate. The issue is there's not really a lot of trash companies. So, we're hoping that we can work with them and get this up where we need it to be. So we do have a phone number that you can call if your trash isn't picked up. You can report it. I encourage you to report it. I get all of the reports. So it's helpful for me to know that 52 people's trash didn't get picked up today, because if you don't report it, I don't know there's a problem, right? But if you call the customer service number during business hours, they have a dispatcher who dispatches directly to the trash truck. So if you have a missed pickup, it's easy for them to say, hey, you just missed somebody on Stonecleve Street, Stonecleve Road. Can you go back to Stonecleve Road? So the customer service number, which we shared today through a robocall, yesterday through our news and through our website and social media, is 1-800-442-9006. So that's 1-800-442-9006. Laurie made fun of me because I called it myself yesterday to make sure it worked. And then I told them I had the wrong number after I went through the whole thing. But, that it does, there was someone there answering the phone. It's a live person. You have to go through a quick menu, but then you do speak to a live person. It's not like a voicemail or anything. And you're able to tell them that your trash wasn't picked up, and they'll able to tell you that you connect you to dispatch, which is great. Again, by the end of the day tomorrow, you should be caught up. So if at the end of the day tomorrow, your trash is not caught up, report it again so that I know. But we are working with them. It seems, and we met with them now probably about a month ago when we first started seeing the issues and concerns. And obviously, it was not to this degree. It was more, sporadic issues. And what they told us was that the way that JRM operated their trucks is different than the way that Republic operates their trucks. So Republic operates their trucks with one additional person on it for safety reasons. But what has happened is that means they have less, like everybody else, they have less employees, and so it's caused backup. Yeah. And so, while I respect their need for safety, I also respect our need to have our trash picked up. So we're working on figuring that out. But that's the deal with trash. And again, don't hesitate to reach out. Call that number. Go on the report it. The report is the best way to report anything that's happening in town, because we all get them immediately, and it's easy for me to categorize it. So that's trash. And then the only other thing I wanted to do is I wanted to recognize Joe LeBanc and former police officer Dave Rand. So with the Veterans Vietnam Memorial earmark, Dave Rand had been zealously advocating for finishing the Vietnam Memorial for years. Yeah. So I think it's huge that I heard he was speechless when he found out, which I think is amazing, and I'm very happy for him that we're able to bring that to fruition. And thank you to Senator Feingold and Senator DeZoglio and our state reps for helping us make that happen. So that's great. That's all I have. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I know the trash issue is taking up an extraordinary amount of time and energy from everybody, so hopefully we will resolve it soon. I do encourage people to both call the number and report it, even though Melissa gets every single one of them, but it's the only way that we know what is still happening. So thank you all.
It was a street.
Yeah.
That they missed a street. Like, there was a call from someone who lives on one of the dead-end streets in my area, and that has been skipped for years. Every new trash haulers, new routes, they get skipped. I'll give you the street afterwards.
I mean, it's also, I'm just writing this down, but it's also, we have a couple of commercial properties that are grandfathered in, right? So, but there's not like there was never a formal list or bylaw that was created. Yeah. It was just your grandfathered in. And so figuring out, well, by the way, you're going to have to just kind of figure it out, right? The other company been doing it forever. So there's those hiccups that go along with those
not
little
a smooth
streets that make it hard. Yeah. So we're working through it, and it's certainly...
Thank you for that. It's important.
Yeah.
We appreciate it. Okay, do my colleagues have updates?
I do, and it's the one that we've been...
I was going to say, Rosemary wants to talk to us about wreaths.
I do. There are wreaths still available, so I would ask anybody who's interested to submit their request so that we can get them done in time for Thanksgiving, for the parade, but they are still available. Again, the message didn't go out. It was just a mistake with the transfer of it, our new account. So people are probably saying, well, where is it? Maybe they're not doing it this year. We are doing it this year, but I would ask that you get your order in as soon as possible. I would even take a drop-off of the requests to my house, or you could email it to me and drop off the check. But they are $90. You can put a dedication on it like years past, and the route is the same as years past, but we really need to get those in as soon as possible. And I appreciate anybody's help and interest, but we have not forgot. We're still doing it. My phone number is 508-633-2001 if you want to call or have any questions as to how to sign up for a wreath. Thank you very much.
I just wanted to thank the Sustainability Committee for partnering with the town of Andover and National Grid. They did an energy and recycling event on Saturday with the green team, and you could bring dehumidifiers and TVs and computers and textiles and furniture and all sorts of things. And the sea of computers and TVs that they were able to recycle, I think there was 280 something cars that came through. Unfortunately, some of the mailers didn't get there in time, and that was on National Grid, and they are going to try and do another one so that we can. So that was a long day for them, and it was very successful. And then, and do you want to talk about the cross country? I know you were there. I couldn't go. My oldest wasn't feeling well, so we couldn't go. But I know it was. I was sad to miss it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a really great week to head over to the new home cross country course. We always have a really talented cross country team, and we've never really had a home course, and now we do, and that is thanks to the hard work of many, many people, but especially would like to thank Rick Green for his administrative support to move that project along so that it could be enjoyed. Those seniors were so excited to have a meet on their home course. So everybody's efforts are appreciated, and a special appreciation for Rick. And I can't wait to go walk on those trails. I will not run. But it's lovely over there. So.
Yeah, I had opportunity to walk on them, I think, the day before they had the first meet, and it was really, really nice. I mean, I go up there all the time, but the trail, it just really, it cuts through, and in the morning, the sun's coming up. It's really, really nice. And I think we would be remiss if we didn't mention Terry Holland on that, too, because Terry he's a silent partner in a lot of things, and he drives a lot of really great initiatives. And I think this was really his brainchild to try to get something up there, as I know, but maybe I'm wrong about that. But I know he had a great deal to do with it, and I mean, he's just such a great supporter of the community.
It's such a beautiful location. Like everything about it is just wonderful, and they get to have their senior night there after the meet was over, and all in all, very positive.
It's a great example of CPC funds. And,
yes.
Right?
Yes.
And the power
should have said that. That's how it was.
And the residents approving that at town meeting was so helpful and beneficial to the kids.
And Laura and I also had the joy of attending the opening of the Upper Crust. They had a fun little parking lot party, and
they did. It was so cute, so cute. The kids, they had face painting, and my kids were loving every minute of it.
And they had a pizza cutting ceremony instead of a ribbon cutting. So
I'd like to say that I agree with what Dick said. The fine work from Rick Green and Terry Holland, and the athletic director, and others.
Huge team of people.
That project is so very well appreciated, and
it's great that everybody can enjoy.
They're great volunteers,
and everybody will be able to enjoy it. So, all right. Thank you all. If there are no other updates, I will take a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.